Cheetah, also known as Cheetah and Friends, is a 1989 live-action film from Walt Disney Pictures starring Keith Coogan and Lucy Deakins. This motion picture was based on Alan Kayu's novel The Cheetahs. It was shot in Nairobi, Kenya. This motion picture features the phrase Hakuna Matata, which became famous when Disney released The Lion King 5 years later. LA siblings Ted and Susan Johnson join their parents in Kenya, where their father, Earl, works at a NASA tracking station, and their mother, Jean, works at a clinic. Ted's dreams of roughing it on the savannah are squashed when Jean leads him into a house that looks like it belongs in Pasadena, California. Although Jean forbids her children to explore, Ted and Susan sneak out to a nearby watering hole to meet with 10-year-old Morogo, a goat herder. Morogo shows the siblings the wildlife of Kenya and they show him how to play video games. One day, Jean comes home to discover Morogo in her home. Ted and Susan plead with their parents to let Morogo be their guide. Reluctantly, the parents give in. One day, Ted kicks a soccer ball over a barrier and it lands against a sleeping rhino. Morogo sneaks up on the beast, retrieves the ball, and places a small stone on the rhino's side. He then gives Ted another stone, daring him to do the same. The rhino awakens as Ted nears, sending him scampering up an embankment. A laughing Morogo tells him that a person must approach a rhino downwind or it will smell him. Kipwan, Morogo's father, is displeased his son is keeping company with Americans because they are cattle eaters. He is even more disgusted to learn they eat fish. One day, the trio comes across a cheetah cub whose mother has been killed by a poacher. Susan insists they take the cub home and talk their parents into letting them raise it. The cub, Duma, becomes the household pet, playing ball, wrestling, and riding in the family car. Ted trains her to come when he blows a whistle. As the date approaches that Ted and Susan must return to the U.S. to continue school, their father tells them it is time to decide Duma's fate. They go to town and meet with Larry, a game warden, who explains that before Duma can be released into the wild, she must be taught to hunt or she will starve. Mr. Patel, a storekeeper, offers to buy Duma, but Susan refuses. When they leave the store, Patel explains to a British adventurer named Nigel that he has an uncle in India that races cheetahs against greyhounds, and he could become rich if he could do the same with Duma. Larry tries to train Duma by placing roadkill in a burlap bag and dragging it behind his jeep. Instead of attacking the bag, Duma jumps into the jeep for a ride. Ted, Susan and Morogo continue the training by dragging bags of meat behind their bicycles. Slowly, Duma catches on and they take him out on the plains near a herd of gazelles. As Ted and Susan watch from a hill, they see a cheetah kill a gazelle, and think it is Duma. But Duma is asleep behind them. Meanwhile, Patel and Nigel hire a poacher named Abdullah to kidnap Duma. Patel explains that cheetahs are sprinters, not distant runners. He plans to make the race just long enough that the cheetah will run out of steam. Unlike all the other gamblers, he will bet on the dogs and make a fortune. The night before Ted and Susan are to leave Africa, Patel breaks into the house, steals Ted's whistle, and uses it to lure Duma away. The next morning, when Ted cannot find Duma, Susan suggests it is a good sign the cat is exploring without them. After a tearful goodbye with Morogo, the family stops at Patel's store to get gasoline. Patel sees the tears in Susan's eyes and asks if she is crying over losing her pet. Ted realizes Patel could not know about Duma's disappearance and then notices that Abdullah is wearing shoes made from old tires, just like the tracks they found around Duma's mother's corpse. Ted tries to convince his parents that Patel kidnapped Duma, but they insist the animal is out exploring. At the airport, Earl tells his children he and Jean will join them in America in 1 month and their grandmother will look after them until then. Ted convinces Susan that Duma is in trouble.